Burwellbeing with Sally Lander.
Hello, I'm Sally Lander, a yoga teacher living and teaching in Burwell. Welcome to my interview programme, Burwellbeing. Over the next few weeks and months, I'm going to interview some of the people at the centre of Burwell's wellbeing. This conversation is with Chrissie Bond, Burwell's most established yoga teacher. When I moved to Burwell more than 2 years ago, I began to hear about Chrissie's yoga and meditation classes. Chrissie is a yoga therapist as well as a teacher and is very much a local legend. She brings her many life skills and experiences into her teachings. For example, she worked as a social worker specialising in mental health, and she has studied yoga meditation and yoga therapy with teachers in India and Nepal. Deeply touched by her experiences in India and Nepal, she is involved in fundraising for the education of Kolkata's street children. We recorded the interview back in the golden days of early November 2020, when yoga classes in person were possible. At that point, Chrissie was teaching face-to-face, as she has been for so many years. The quality of our recording isn't perfect, but I hope you'll bear with us. Hi, Chrissie.
Hi there, Sally.
Oh, it's so lovely, isn't it? We've never had a chance to talk about yoga before, and I'm so grateful to you for finding the time. But first, before we get on to yoga, I thought I would just ask you a little bit about Burwell and your relationship with Burwell. So, for instance, what do you love about Burwell?
Well, I don't actually live in Burwell, but I've had a connection with Burwell for, it seems like a very long time. And so I guess what I've found is that I've made some really good friends in Burwell over the years. And the answer to that question, therefore, has to be that Burwell is filled with warm, loving, sincere people.
Oh, yes, I just so agree, Chrissie. I mean, I've only been here for 2 years and I really knew nothing about Burwell before we moved here. And we've just been so astonished by the warmth of the people. When I go back to Cambridge, I forget myself and I start saying hello to people on the street. And they look at me, like I'm absolutely mad.
Yes, of course.
Whereas, honestly, you can say hello to anyone, can't you, in the streets of Burwell? They're always pleased.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, so tell us about when and how did you come to start teaching in Burwell? So tell us about your relationship with Burwell.
Okay, so I first became connected with Burwell in around about 2005 when I started to teach. I formed a small group after school club in the junior school in Burwell. And so I was teaching children, and I taught children yoga for many years at the junior school.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
I was in school. So I was teaching the children there for about 7 years or so. But also, whilst I was there, another activity that was taking place in the school was yoga for what was called at the time for older people. And the teacher wasn't very well, so I was asked if I could cover it for a while, which I did. And the teacher wasn't able to return. So I rapidly changed the name. I changed the name of the yoga group to Gentle Yoga because I felt that was more not excluding and making this something that only older people could come to.
Oh, exactly.
And so I still have my Gentle Yoga class, which runs every Thursday morning, but I moved it out of the school. And some of the original members are still with me and in their 80s and 90s.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm really proud of being able to, by chance take over that particular group. It's been a wonderful experience.
Tell us, Chrissie, how many classes do you have in Burwell and when are they?
I have 4 classes in Burwell. I have 1 on Tuesday evening, 2 on Thursday morning, and 1 on Thursday evening.
Brilliant. And so, we'll come back later, right at the end, to how we can get in touch with you, how students can get in touch with you. And of course, you do also have classes in other villages around here. And, there's all sorts of opportunities to be taught by Chrissie, teachers in other ways as well. But maybe we could go back to the beginning of your yoga journey now, Chrissie, because that's what I'm really so excited to hear. What's the story of how you came to be teaching yoga?
Okay, well, what I say is that I think I was actually a yogi before I had the name to attach to what I was doing and how my life was progressing. For instance, as a child, I had a real connection with nature. I had a very happy childhood, and I lived on the coast. And so my life revolved around playing in the woods, going on the beach with my friends, swimming, collecting shells, etc., playing in the woods where there was a stream, and you could pretend you were camping, etc. I had a really nice childhood with nature, and I learned to swim in the sea and took up diving, diving from boards at the time in the docks in the village. Yes, and from there, and synchronized swimming.
Oh my goodness!
So I had a lot of influence with nature. Then there was the movement part of things that came into my life. So, and then as a teenager, I always remember becoming really sensitive to other people's feelings and aware of people who needed help. I've got this great awareness of that time in my life. And that led me, of course, into, my early 20s. And so, when I got into my early 20s, I had quite a lot of, I lost quite a lot of close family, very close together time-wise. Mm. And I was very aware of how I was coping with that. And again, became very aware of self-care and how to cope mentally. So this is when my interest in mental health came into my life. And from there, I decided to study to become a social worker. Now, as a social worker, I then specialized in mental health. And wow, I've worked with some very, very, seriously mentally ill people. And it was, in many ways, I'm so pleased that I was able to be part of all of those people's lives that I came across.
Yes.
And it was after that I went on a holiday. And it was a holiday where you chose some hobbies, and you could write, paint, walk, dance, do yoga, meditation. You chose three things to do on this holiday, and I chose meditation, yoga, and dance. And so, unbeknown to me, these 3 elements were all taught by the same person, and the person was called Michael Stewart. And at that point, when I was in Skiros in the Greek islands, I suddenly realized that my whole life's journey had brought me to this point, that my love of dance, gymnastic, caring, mental health, nature, they just all came together at that point. Rather than being different lines in my life, they just came together. And I realized that, the next step of my journey was to become a yoga teacher and a therapist. And here I am.
Oh, Chrissie, that's wonderful. And so was Michael Stewart, did he remain influential in your yoga life then?
Oh, still very, very influential. Yes, absolutely. He's still a huge part of my life. And yes, he's an amazing person. Yes, incredible person. And of course, I've also, as you say, I've also travelled now and have different teachers too. So
yes. So did you study with? Was it Michael that you studied with, or people that he was working with?
I studied with Michael, and also took a course in yoga in the UK. But I would say it isn't my main way of learning the deeper part of yoga. My real learnings and my real teachings come from Michael. And then, of course, my travels in India. And I've been fortunate enough to have some incredible teachers in India, especially. And continue to learn. I'm crazy about learning and delving deeper and deeper and deeper into yoga and well-being, mental health still. It's great to continue learning.
Yes, isn't it? Yeah. So yes, my direction at the moment is learning how to record and edit radio, but there's always something to learn.
Yes, always something to learn.
No matter what direction you go in. Gosh. And do you find that over all these years that you've been teaching yoga, each time you learn something new, you bring it to your students, and your teaching has changed over the years?
Yes, I'm sure. I would say my students would say that. My students who've been with me for many years. I always think that we are only here to share what we learn. And so what I learn and my life's experiences, of course, influence my teachings. I pass on to my students. So as I learn, I hope they learn and become more deeply connected with their yoga too.
Yes. So I follow Chrissie mainly on the Burwell community notice board, and also follow her, her personal Facebook. And it's a joy to read your relationship with your students. You're obviously so close.
Yes, they're a joy to me. We have such a deep connection. I like to think I build communities, and part of that community spirit is to the joy of coming together and being able to support one another, share, laugh together. It's all so important.
Oh, isn't it? Yes.
It's just as important as that moving around bit that we do in yoga.
Absolutely, Chrissie. And that really brings me really directly to lockdown and your experience of lockdown, how it affected your business. And, business is one word, but obviously the other thing is your relationships with all your students. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Well, yes, I was concerned about especially some of my students, my more vulnerable students in that time.
Tell me again about your students during lockdown.
So during lockdown, of course, everything stopped, didn't it, so quickly? And we had to say goodbye, and it was very emotional. We tried to keep as many lines of communication open as is possible. Some of my students really are not used to using, for instance, Zoom or all the clever ways that we have of staying connected now. But we've been able to keep going through Facebook, try to keep as many lines open as possible. But it was very difficult.
Yes. And when did you, I know you've started teaching haven't you started teaching in person again?
I have, yes, I have indeed.
Yes. How long have you been teaching in person again? And because I'm still on Zoom. So My room, the rooms I have, my home studio and the room I hire in Cambridge are just not suitable. And so I'm still on Zoom, but I'm just so, so eager to hear about how it is going back now.
It was really quite difficult. I wasn't sure about coming back. I have been teaching now for 3 weeks. This is the end of my 3rd week, and it's gone far better than I ever thought it could be. Fortunately, all the venues I'm using have very, very rigid government guidelines, risk assessments. So I feel as if my venues are all safe to use. I have my own risk assessment, which I carried out for each venue, and ensuring that everyone follows the guidelines for coming in, for spacing, and for leaving the rooms, etc. And it's working very, very well. I'm absolutely delighted with how it's going.
Oh, that's fantastic. Did I see that you changed your payment process so that people pay in a more organised way online now?
Yes, that was my biggest change, because I've had, you could bring cash, you could write me a cheque, you could pay by card or backs, etc. And I thought I must have an online booking system, which sounds far too business-like for me. If you know me, I'm organised, but I rather like my airy-fairy drop-in when you like type of yoga.
Yes.
Atmosphere.
Yes.
But I realised that wouldn't work anymore. So I put a lot of work in. It took me quite a while to set up the online booking system.
I'm really impressed that you did that.
The majority of my students are able to use the online booking system.
Absolutely fantastic. And I think, so I've been looking at your website, and I think, although it's obviously very organised, it still has a kind of friendly look about it.
I always say, I'm okay. I mean, I'm just fortunate. People give me money to share what I love and I really believe in. And so, but I never say that I go to work. I always say I'm going out to teach, but I never see it as work. And I think something like a booking system seems to put me in in a different sort of category altogether.
Oh, I know just what you mean.
We can all come together, so that's great.
Yes. And I think, everybody really understands and appreciates that. Absolutely. I wanted to ask, so there are your group classes that are, organised and regular, and all those timings are on your website, your yoga classes. And then what else do you teach, Chrissie?
Well, I teach meditation, but at the moment, I'm not the changeover from one class to the next. There wouldn't be time to clean, to, reset the room, ready for the next group of people. So my meditation is on hold at the moment, and I thought, well, let's just get the yoga started, and then perhaps we can unfold and we can bring in meditation hopefully really soon, because I think it's a really important part of what I do.
Do the same students tend to come to both?
Yes, mostly it's my yoga students who also attend the meditation practices. And within the meditation, we'll explore all different types of meditation. That will include sound meditation with my bowls and my gong, and we do yoga nidra. So lots and lots of different explorations of types of meditation. It's really, and I'm surprised how many people attend and really, really get to feel the benefits of meditation. It's incredible.
Yes. Oh, well, I hope it comes back for you soon. And I think, can people also do one-to-ones and small groups or that kind of thing with you, Chrissie? Or is that difficult at the moment?
So my one-to-ones are, again, not happening at the moment, because that would involve me. What I do is go to people's homes and practice with them in their home. Practices are on hold at the moment, but I am practicing with one of my couples who I see privately via Zoom. So that's working really well. And I hope to get back to my other students very soon.
Oh, it's beginning to come back, isn't it? You know,
it is.
You're feels like you're almost there. As I say, personally, I'm still on Zoom. So it's just lovely to hear about you being back with your students. And my next question was, I know
I'm just dipping my toe in.
Yes. Oh, well, no, I think you've thrown yourself in. Honestly, Chrissie, it's just so good to hear. My next question was, tell us about one of your favourite students. Of course, I know that's very divisive thing to say, because we love, we all love all our students. But I just wondered if you had a particular story that you found particularly inspiring.
I had lots of lovely stories. Yeah. I could have done this whole chat about my students and how they are so joyous to be around, and I have some amazing memories of my students. So I really don't. I thought about this and I thought, wow, which story do I tell? But I do have a lovely, lovely story that many of my students bring up time and time and time again. And I was holding a workshop to fundraise for the Hope Foundation, which you mentioned, and I was raising money for the Hope Foundation, and I had a workshop. And on that particular day, my son was there as well, and he'd brought his daughter with him. And Willow, my granddaughter, of course, 3 years of age she was at the time. And we were doing our yoga, and Willow was joining in as a 3-year-old does, just copying. But one of the best moments was when all of my students were in downward facing dog through the entire row of my students in down dog. We had a row of downward facing dogs, about 10 students, I think it was. It would be around about that. And Willow took it upon herself to crawl through this tunnel of down dogs. And of course, so it was quite a long way. The students started to giggle and laugh, and Willow made her way through, occasionally stopping to have a little chat or a look at the student. And everyone had to stay exactly as they were while Willow made her way through this tunnel. And we laughed so much. It was such a joy. And we still talk about it today, all these years later.
Oh, how old is Willow now then, Chrissie?
Oh, God. Well, she's 9. So, the lovely connection there also, Sally, was that, everyone there, we were all raising money for the Hope Foundation for these street children. And here was a little child, free and full of laughter. And the link was so poignant at that moment. To have, yes. a child who was, if you like, privileged and had a wonderful life. And we were raising money for the street children of India. Amazing, really, really, really touching.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, the phone rang. That's my parents phoning me. But I think we've had to record. So my husband's answered it. We've had to re-record so many glitches that I think I'll just leave the little phone ringing over it. And I'm so glad that we've got background to...
Oh, I think that's fine.
Yes, exactly.
It makes it real.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes it realistic.
Exactly. Oh, Chrissie, but I'm so glad we got background to the Hope Foundation, because, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about it, including how people can find out about it, which I think is probably through your website, is it?
Yes, it's on my website and it's on my Facebook, the Hope Foundation, foundation.com. It's a very small charity, and I came across it after I'd been in India and was so moved by what I'd seen in India, and decided I'd like to try to fundraise for the street children, and then to try and narrow it down to a small charity. And I came across the Hope Foundation. It was formed in India it was founded by an Irish lady called Maureen Forrest after she had been to India, she felt similar to the way I was feeling and felt she wanted to do something to help the children. So it's a very, very small charity, and that's the reason I really like the charity. And it's based in Kolkata, and I've been over and visited the charity and the children, and I'd started to sponsor a child before I went out to India. And when I went out to India the next time, I was able to meet Mahi, the little girl that I sponsor. And since then, I also sponsor a boy as well. So we, through the charity, sponsor the education in Kolkata.
Oh, that's brilliant. And just of course, everybody can always find everybody just by Googling, but do tell us your website address if that's the best way for people to find out about your classes.
Yes, it's www.chrissiebondyoga.com. That's ChrissieBond, fairly easily. Yoga is easy.
Perfect. Can you hear me, Chrissie?
I can.
We broke up again a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Then. So, and then also there's the Burwell community Facebook for Burwell people.
Yes, indeed.
And I know you often get in contact with your students through Facebook, and people can find you there, which is another really easy way to get in touch.
Absolutely.
And then we're having some trouble with our Zoom glitches, so we're going to draw this to an end in a minute or two. But my final question was, based on your expertise, Chrissie, can you give us a tip for maintaining our health and well-being?
Yes, of course. Well, one of the easiest and most beneficial tip I could possibly give is something that we do every day, 24 hours a day. And of course, that is to breathe. But to breathe mindfully, of course. So breathing in, perhaps for 4 counts, and breathing out for, say, 6 counts, a longer out breath. Sitting still, maybe with your eyes closed while you breathe. And if you take a few moments, very quickly you'll find that you feel as if you're calming your mind, centering your thoughts, releasing stress. It's beneficial when you're angry, frightened, sad, distressed. A few moments is sufficient to help you feel much better.
Thank you, Chrissie. And we're going to draw the interview to an end now. Chrissie and I had to turn off our cameras to cope with to get a better bandwidth to speak. But yes. Isn't it amazing to hear her voice? You have the most beautiful voice, Chrissie. And I know your students must so enjoy being back in the room with you. But even if you could just phone them up and talk to them, I'm sure that would make them extremely happy.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you, Sally.
Oh, and we hope to get together, don't we, when things take a turn and everybody's meeting up more.
I'd love that, Sally. I'd really love that.
Oh, Chrissie, it's just been an absolute joy. And we'll say goodbye and we will see each other 1 month soon.
Namaste.
Namaste, Chrissie.
Namaste.
Well, that was my conversation with Chrissie, yoga teacher extraordinaire, in November 2020. Now, in February 2021, Chrissie is well established with her online classes, and you can find out about them through Facebook, but also through her lovely website. All the yoga teachers in Burwell are online now, and we all have websites you can look us up on. So that's Chrissie, me, my website is Nightingale Yoga, and Burwell's newest yoga teacher, the fantastic Emma Fryer, also known as Girl on a Rock. I hope to get to know her better one day and find out why that's her yoga name. Do consider adding yoga to your life by getting in touch with us. I'm pretty sure it'll help things.
Burwellbeing with Sally Lander.